Hello and welcome. Here we are again, the Marianne and Corinna duo, at the usual time, Tuesday, and we're already in April. Boy, this year
Well,
has been flying. Um, so, Marianne is taking it off on the subject of convenient belief systems.
thank you, Karina, and welcome. And isn't it wonderful that this month is also our both birth month?
Yep,
So we have a lot to celebrate this month, aren't we?
I actually have birthday later this week, so.
Or do we believe we have to celebrate a lot? We can believe that.
Uh, no, celebrating is not a belief system for me. It's just celebrating life. It doesn't have to be
Exactly.
solely on my birthday.
Let's take off to the theme of today as it is waiting and swirling and bubbling almost 14 days now in our world
Hmm.
as we couldn't come live last week. So interesting. It is really an interesting team and a team that led us everywhere. As yesterday, our conversation was off the chart, and we will not repeat it because nor can we
Yeah.
repeat, nor whatever. That's not the case. But do you know what came for me this morning?
Hmm.
Going on with what is it? What is belief truly? What is convenient beliefs? And I thought, let me look up what dictionary has to
Hmm.
say about it, because I can remember also that it was something that came up in my book that I wrote lately, my first book. That theme of believing is also, yeah, spoken about in there. So I looked it up in the English language, the belief, and it said that it is to accept that someone or something, and someone is saying the truth or something is true. So that accepting thing I found really interesting in that. Another thing said that it is a thinking so we can hold on to an opinion.
Hmm.
And another one said that it is to be sure that something is true or that is something, someone saying the truth. So the energy of holding on to something coming from the mind, that thinking is the energy going there. And then when I looked it up again in the Dutch language, which is
Hmm.
my native language, the Dutch is, instead of believe, it is geloven. And that is coming from admiration, showing admiration. It is making something so great that you admire. So you hold also onto it outside of you. So when you hold onto that thing, it says also, then you take it for granted and you take it for, yeah, in a kind of the love that there is in there. You can love something and you can
Hmm.
love someone. So also there it is similar.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, other energies. And then as a sudden, I was repeating that word, believe, believe. And as I heard myself saying, believe, I heard, oh, but that's interesting. I leave, I go out of the being who I am, my truth, because as it says,
Yeah.
you accept it outside. And that I found really interesting, as often we can do with words when we split them up and we go with the energy. only from the sounds sometimes, then we can perceive already other things. And this one for me triggered me the most at the end is that it is when I believe it comes from something I think, I accept, or I assume, granted, grabbing on whatever I'm doing with it, but outside of me. So I literally leave me, my being, and my knowing.
And
And
that is an important point, because basically from what you said, I walk away with, I don't know the truth. I have to go outside of me to find out about the truth.
yeah. And when you go outside, it was also taking it for granted. When we take something for granted, where is the space for a question? Beliefs we don't question any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So when we don't question any longer, then it's safe. And in distance, we don't have to question even ourselves because everything is there in place.
Yeah.
So from there came the question, could it be that beliefs, we invent beliefs to keep us in place, to keep us in the box, to keep us there where we are.
Where it's comfortable?
We believe it is comfortable. Is it comfortable?
That is always the question.
That is always the question. But as we saw going through the energies, then there is
Yeah.
no room for question. And that's an interesting thing, as both of us, even during our conversations, question is always in the running.
Yeah.
Always. Question leads to more exploration, to more possibilities, to more. Always more.
But in that sense, what you were talking about isn't a belief, because it's outside of us, a great tool for manipulation, because it's also supposed to be true.
Yes. Yes. Because that goes together. It is
Mm-hmm.
true, and then I can believe it because I take that for granted. I accept that as the truth. Yes.
Yeah. And therefore, it's a great manipulation. And if I look through that lens at the news or what's been going on, just even this year, the first 3 months, how much has there been an attempt to manipulate us all? And I just noticed within myself, I not necessarily perceive the manipulation, but I perceive a statement that isn't coherent, that there is something off.
Exactly. And you mentioned manipulation, and it is. However, in the latest years before COVID, I was looking up also to the energy of manipulation, because could it be that we notify manipulation as something negative, which can be also an energy to pull in for more? But that what is off here, what you mentioned with the manipulation, isn't it that they do so well their best for us, believing what they are bringing? So then they have the ease to go with whatever there is, because once we believe everything, then we are easy puppets to play with.
Yeah.
And is that the manipulation that you notice?
Yeah. And not, and I will be honest, I personally, I finally got to the place where manipulation, contrary to years ago, is no longer evoking that, oh, this is bad and you should never manipulate,
Exactly.
etc., etc.
Yeah.
There is um, there is manipulation that is in a way positive, that can be an invitation to explore something more,
Yes.
that is not attempting to sell truth outside of the other person, but rather through manipulation putting them into question.
Yes.
And then they can find their own truth. I'm not asking them to believe me, but in most cases, manipulation is used to sell you the truth
Yeah.
that you're supposed to believe.
Yes, I catch that difference, and that is so beautiful that when we use the energy of manipulation to open up a space, to open up room for more, without expectations, without projections, without whatever, then it is a growing space we open up.
Yeah.
Towards the manipulation, as you mentioned, to into the narrative of, yes, there you have to go believing what I'm telling you, whatever it is. Yes.
And
Yes.
look, looking from the perspective that you've brought at the title that we had, convenient belief systems, how much are we holding on to belief systems because it allows us to stay where we are? It allows us to have it external and not have the sense of responsibility of finding out what is true or not true. And that
Exactly.
makes it convenient.
Yes. Yes. So in a certain way, every belief we have has underlaying that convenience, because it is serving us.
And
If I am questioning it and coming out of the convenient, then I push myself out of the comfort.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And not to say that, you know, I go through life and I come across things, and out of intermingling those ideas, those thoughts, I create a belief system, and that is not necessarily yet a convenient belief system if I choose to stay in question.
Yes,
Is
but
that
there
true?
it is. There it is, Karina. When you have a belief, truly a belief, then it's closed. So when there is a question and you open yourself up for questioning, is it then truly a belief? Do you get
Okay,
me?
we can, how do we call it that then? That kind of a belief.
That is what I am exploring now for myself. It is
Mhm.
because we have the tendency to call it a belief, but in a
I,
way, when we go with the energies of how it is described, then it's a belief is something fixed, is something closed, is there is no room for question.
yeah,
So when we think even that we have a belief, but we go in question, then it's not a belief, but what is it? Is it,
the word that just popped for me is it an opinion? And I can hold, just looking over my personal life, I was 15, 20 years ago, I was very opinionated. I had an opinion because an opinion as I grew up was considered a standpoint. And you didn't want to have a wobble point. you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But then applying your thought, an opinion can still be questioned. A belief is basically not questionable anymore.
yeah, 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 correct.
And an
That
opinion
resonates.
can be that mixture of having heard this here and that there, and I meld it together and
Yeah.
form an opinion about something. So yeah.
And what if, Karina, that when we use belief and we go in question, that it can be that we are aware that there is a belief somehow, but it does not resonate any longer. So therefore, I am up to
Mhm.
ask a question. So it can be going in different ways.
Yeah.
It's because do we, as you mentioned now, also with that opinion, is it sometimes also out of ease? We use the word belief where it is not truly what we meaning or want to say.
And I fully agree with you, not just in that specific instance. Uh, I think overall we are pretty sloppy in the way we use words, just for convenience sake. Let's call it this, let's call it that, when it actually is not congruent with the energy that I see behind, or I perceive behind my use of the
Yeah,
word.
yeah. And that's not only for this word belief, we do it in
Yeah,
general. We do
yeah.
it in general. Yeah. And that is also where we catch the lies. There are so many times that is obvious that the language of the body is different than the language, the spoken language, and even the language around it in an expanded way of observing. And that is really interesting, going with what is language, how do we use language, how start we use language, and how do we use it now as, yeah. Even there, in there, when I'm saying it, I notice there even a belief into it, as a believing that the language as we use it nowadays is truly important to get out of a message. And is that true?
Uh, I mean, as as things stand right now, not too many people are well versed in reading uh, energy, perceiving energy, and communicating telepathically. And I'm not even sure how far I would be able to pick up a lot telepathically. I do pick up some every once in a while. So, on some level, we need to rely on language. And what if we just commit to being truthful in a sense, from in an energetic sense, that we are really attempting to convey the energy that we're talking about through the use of words. And in that sense, on some level, language is also limiting because we
Yeah.
have a limited vocabulary. And the language is already one step removed from the energetic telepathic perception.
Yeah. And I can relate completely to what you are saying, completely.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, it is like, yeah, but is it coming from several beliefs about language and the communication, as though you mentioned, yes, I can pick up, but I'm not quite sure how far or how good I already am. But could it be that by continuous using the verbal language, we keep ourselves also out of the experience? We don't allow ourselves to,
You
for
mean we don't
example,
practice?
exactly, because, for example, what would happen if we allowed ourselves 2, 3 days for start, not speaking, but for example, the both of us, that we would say, oh, Karina, how would it be that we would communicate 3 days in a row, but without messaging, without speaking anything, and then afterwards having a conversation on what we experienced? It is, we don't train ourselves, isn't it?
That is true. And I just wanted to ask, can we start with just one day?
Exactly.
Because I'm not
Exactly.
sure I'll remember on day 4 what we tried to telepathically communicate about on day 1.
And this is something beautiful. It is, Karina, because it is true that every communication, especially energetically, is going so fast. And is it also that due to language, we yeah, we slow it down and we can keep on to it? So the evolution or the movement
Yeah.
is so much more slow, because what if that if we would do it 3 days, and I hear you, and it is correct, more likely we would not know or remember the 4th day what to tell about the first day, because it's gone, it's already transformed or transmuted. And what if it is all about that? What if it is all about that?
And to be totally honest, I mean, how often have I told you on Tuesday after our Monday conversation, what the heck did we talk about? What was exactly? I mean, it
It is.
didn't even last one day.
It is, and I
So,
notice it more and more and more and more.
yeah.
Yes, and that gives me also the kind of experience that with time, as we know it, the linear time in 24 hours is a day, called a day. It is like, what, a day? It has a sense of a month, or
Mhm.
sometimes even more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how much more would be possible if we let it go of that belief that we require still language?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Challenge. Seems like we're throwing out a challenge. Who is willing to just practice for a little bit, telepathic? And, I have to say, I have a friend who is often looking for the right word. And then she sort of sends me a picture and asks me, come on, you know the word. I'm sending it to you. And interestingly, is not always, but often, I come up with the word
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
she's looking for. So, in a way, that tells me that I am picking up on that
Yeah. Yeah.
communication.
Yeah. But language, for me, language is something really magical and beautiful also,
Mhm.
as you can capture in a word so much. It is possible.
And how much, just looking at how I am with using words, I am looking for the words that capture the energy that I'm trying
Yeah.
to convey. And when we do that, language becomes magical.
Yeah.
If we just blah, 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 then
Yeah. Yeah. As this does remember me of the yeah, I don't know how you say it in English. I think it's the syllabus, the pronounces or tones, the
the, pronou-
principles of the language.
the pronunciation.
It's not really the pronunciation. It is like the first language, word language, was more like the O, M, A, only
Our
a
sound.
few sounds. But in one sound, it was like a story. There was so
Yeah.
much in it that, and
Yeah.
that magic, how would that be that we bring that into the language we know nowadays? It is not for me going back to that or into the way it was before, but how would it be that we
Mhm.
start really to use the true language of communication and not only the language of the blah, 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 blah?
And that basically is asking, what are you choosing? How present are you willing to be when you talk?
Yeah,
And how congruent are you willing to be when you talk? That the energy that you perceive, the energy that you want to express, matches the use of words and how you speak.
yeah. This is something that is easily reflected in when you react, for example, and there is a reaction of anger and
Mhm.
fury. How often is it because you are no longer really present? You start to shout out and blah, 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 and it comes out. And then afterwards it is, oh, but what came out of my mouth, I didn't mean that. It came out of the fury energies.
Mhm.
That is something where you really can observe
Yeah.
how it is, how you can go with language in so many different ways, and
Mhm.
where it is creating and where it is declining.
Destroying. Mhm.
Yes. And coming back to our beliefs, is belief something we believe truly something that creates? Or could it be that it is stagnating or this destroying? I would not say, but
But if we go
slowing
with your
down.
definition of belief, that it is something that we assume is true,
Mm-hmm.
and how many beliefs do we have that actually are not true?
Yeah.
So we already start with a mismatch. We talk about something as if it is true, and we may not be aware of it, and we may be, but in actuality, it is not true. So, how can we be then even energetically congruent?
Yeah. And
And there
how
it
can
becomes
that
limiting.
create? Exactly. Exactly. Because in no way it can create. It creates, but not never more.
Right.
Never.
Everything creates something,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
and
Yeah.
and what is it that we would like to create, to be aware of that?
Yeah.
And and how much can we challenge ourselves to really be, before we start speaking, to be aware of what we are trying to create? Talk about slowing things down.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is something I became really aware of, how much we slow down ourselves with so many things. With so
And
because
is
we
that negative?
whatever it is, something that I notice for me is no longer working, as it is not creating more, slowing me down in whatever way, in whatever the subject is no longer working. Everything as I experience it, and we mentioned it before, as one day looks like a month. So everything is faster and faster and faster when we let go of all that is limiting us, all that is
Mhm.
defining it, all that it is keeping it in linearity. So yeah, because in truth, nothing is negative, nothing is positive.
Nothing is good, nothing is bad,
Yeah,
nothing is
yeah,
right, nothing is wrong. Things are just, they
yeah.
just are.
They just are. They just are. And as we notice it, like every week we have our conversation, and there is so much going on in one conversation, and somehow our bodies and our beings picking up some energy out of that conversation,
Mhm.
and there we go on with. And as we see now, this one is running for 2 weeks, and it is running for 2 weeks because due to some external unforeseen things, we couldn't have the conversation last week. And what if that was the perfect timing so we could explore more?
Would the conversation a week ago have been the same as it is today?
I would say no. I would
Most
say no.
likely, yeah.
And even though if we would bring it back within a month, it
It
will
would
be
not be the same. It would be
completely
different.
different also.
Yeah.
Yes. Hmm. Great.
Because I'm, looking at it, I'm not the same person that I was yesterday, and last week, and last month. Oh God, that feels like lifetimes ago.
Exactly. Exactly. And as I'm looking back for 4 or 5 years ago, when someone would say, yeah, that changed, every day you are someone different, I would say, huh? How is that possible? What the heck? I am who I am. I am this and this and this and this, and coming up with all those definitions and whatever and whatever and whatever. And the easiness, when you really acknowledge it, that it is every day, every hour, every minute, as even now within this moment, there I am different than before the conversation here with us online started. And it's not about making things significant or having words or new definitions for what it is about, but allowing that flow, allowing that movement, allowing the changes with ease.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Perhaps that's a good theme for another time.
And
Does change require hardness, difficulties?
oh, yeah, surely it does.
Okay, yeah. I would say go on and choose it.
Yeah,
If you are happy with that, go for it.
I guess I wouldn't be the change junkie that I am if it would be difficult and hard and laborious. But if it can be easy and just a natural evolution, then why not change?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why not?
You
It
know?
is. Why not? Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Then we will say goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you guys next week, same time. And I'm curious what we're going to cook up then.
We will
What
see.
happens in the week until next Monday for our conversation.
Yes.
Well, take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye.